All right, I'll move on to what's been the topic of the year, the topic of the offseason, the tush push. I just want to make sure that everybody understands the procedure here because there was some reporting early in the year, I think after maybe the Eagles Chiefs game, that there's no guarantee that this is going to be back on the table in the offseason. But if I understand this correctly, any team can propose a rule that would modify the procedures or just flat out get rid of the tush push. All it takes is one team. Is that accurate?
Absolutely, and you're 100% correct. Any team could submit a playing rule proposal, and that occurs right after season ends. There's a time period, and last year was the Green Bay Packers. They had a playing rule proposal inside the rule that talks about assisting a runner, but that hasn't been discussed internally. But absolutely, every year we have multiple proposals, playing rule proposals, not only from the team, but then also the competition committee can also write a proposal, bylaw, or resolution.
And Troy, you spoke earlier this week about the difficulty in officiating the play. But if the tush push itself were to go away, wouldn't the Eagles still run a quarterback sneak with that same alignment and that same possibility of guys on either side of the center taking off early?
Absolutely, and it's interesting because sometimes you see people, or there's still a quarterback sneak, and the push are completely two different plays. You know, the push requires someone coming from behind and aiding that runner, but you can still run that play without anyone. We've seen it. We've seen not only Philadelphia, but other teams run a very similar look without any pushing or aiding the runner. So there is a separation in between the two and how people view it. But hey, the Eagles do it well. I mentioned that earlier this week, Mike, as you referenced in the post game, in the post presser at the annual meetings. They do it well. Frankly, they do it better than anyone else. We've seen it. The officials had said that to us years ago, that it's difficult to officiate. Sometimes we have the luxury of looking at a play with different angles and in slow motion, you go, well, how did they miss the guard moving, or someone being in that neutral zone? It's just a tough play to officiate. I'm sure that it'll be discussed during the offseason, but up into coming up and going into week 8, hasn't been any discussion from any of the clubs to our knowledge, or even internally.
The rule itself, the backstory is that through 2005, there was no pushing or pulling allowed of the ball carrier. 2006, the pushing was permitted. The pulling is still prohibited. I ask you that, Troy, because we saw on Sunday night the pulling of Christian McCaffrey into the end zone for the final touchdown of the night in San Francisco's win over Atlanta. My just loose assessment from watching games, I can't remember a pulling of the runner being called. And you see it from time to time. Why is it that if it's a rule on the books that you can't pull the runner, we don't actually see the officials in the games throw the flag for it?
And that's the difficulty. I mean, you said it. That progression over the years, now seeing let's say an offensive lineman pick a guy up and aid him along the way to push the pull, and that's illegal on both sides of the ball. And that's some of the difficulty. When does forward progress stop? It was a few years back. I remember Wayne Mackey talking about if the runner is up and the shoulder pads are parallel to the line, blow the whistle, stop play. All of those things are part of the difficulty of, do you let him play? When do you blow the whistle? When do you not? And if you blow it too early, what you get is the blow black from the clubs. Like, you stopped a play early that our either offensive line we were still moving the ball down the field, the runner was still moving. So those are the kind of things that we discuss. It makes it very difficult, but those are the things that were presented when the rule was presented, and some of the arguments of how do you just clean up that play in its entirety.
How much of it is, though, like an institutional thing where we have a habit of not throwing a flag for pulling the runner, so when we see a guy pulling a runner, we're less inclined to pull out the flag?
I think that's what it is, because every rule, there's a little bit of leniency. No, like holding. We typically don't call holding to the non-play side. No different here, where and it was Washington. I think it was actually Coach Quinn had brought it up a year ago, around that aiding the runner and when should it stop. And so this will be a topic of discussion potentially again of when do you blow the whistle where forward progress stops, what's pulling, how much should we allow, how much aiding should we allow. So those are things that the committee and the membership will discuss. I would assure you at length during the offseason.
Hi, it's Mike Florio. Thanks for watching PFT on YouTube. Hit subscribe for the latest news and analysis from Pro Football Talk.